Hello again. I'm out here at Lake Keechelus. Beautiful area near Snoqualmie Summit. It's on I-90 on the pass over the Cascades. Walked about half an hour from the snow park parking lot. Beautiful walk. There's a hard crust on the snow. I can tell it hasn't snowed for a while, and maybe it's rained and then froze, and we had a really cold night last night, so I can walk right on top of this deep snow. This is the scene I'm going to paint. What's really drawing me to the scene and what I want to make sure I capture is this beautiful edge of the lake where it's frozen or partially frozen and covered in snow. Beautiful colors there. There's some almost greenish blues, there's some sky blues, there's some deeper, warmer, almost browns. So I want to paint that path leading around the edge, around the shore of the lake. And then I, of course, love these mountains in the distance. They're catching some beautiful light right now. Earlier there was some cloud shadow on this closer hillside, and just leaving that farther peak exposed, and I may try for that. That may be the effect I go for. It's a little more interesting than just straight on light on all the peaks. I find that shadow really adds some drama to a scene. Beautiful location, easy to get to, even in the middle of winter. There's a number of scenes here, probably later in the day, facing east, facing this direction would be gorgeous as well. Lower slanted sun on that scene. Alright, well, I'll get set up and get started. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Quick rundown on my colors. Got ivory black, Rembrandt cold gray, titanium white, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, transparent oxide brown, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, cad red, cad yellow, and Windsor lemon. This is kind of my typical limited palette. So I didn't get out the yellow ochre, I didn't get out the lighter version of this yellow, the Gamblin, Radiant Gamblin lemon. I didn't get out cobalt blue or phthalo blue. So I think with the muted colors in this scene, I don't need, sap green as well. I didn't get out sap green. I think I'll get away with just these colors. I may not even use all of these colors. I've got Artist Turpentine here. This is Richeson's rectified turpentine. I'm trying it this time. Normally I use Winsor & Newton Artist Turpentine, distilled turpentine, which works very well. I've got a little bit of liquid in here. I'll get out my Gamsol once I'm done with the turpentine wash. I'm going with a 11 by 14 inch Centurion oil primed linen panel. I've been enjoying painting on those. I got a bunch of them around the holidays. They had some really nice sales. I've heard good things about them. I heard they last and they're durable, so I'm hoping that they do last many years. They are very lightweight, so they're nice to hike with. Alright, I'll start out with the sketch. I'll take a small brush with a little bit of turpentine and sketch in the composition the way I want it. I'm not going to stay exactly the same as what I'm seeing in front of me. I'm going to change things up a bit so that it fits nicely on the panel. I'll do that very quickly with a small bristle brush, and then I'll go in with my larger bristle brush and do the turpentine wash. For the turpentine wash, think I'll use alizarin crimson for the sky, because there's kind of a cool warmth in the clouds that I think will peek through nicely, peek through the blues of the sky. I'll also use alizarin crimson for the mountains back there. I think that'll peek through the snow and peek through the green trees on the hillsides nicely. For the tree line, I'll use a little bit of cad yellow. And then for the sweep of the water, I'm going to describe this path of the water, the edge of the lake, with a little bit of Windsor lemon, because I see a nice yellow warmth behind the ice where the water is, under the ice. And then for the snow over here, I think I'll use alizarin crimson again, because I think that will show up nicely. Once I have the turpentine wash on the panel, I'll take evergreen, rosemary evergreen, little firmer brush, sharper brush, and wipe away the lightest lights. That'll be really important in this scene. I'll want to wipe away some of the patches in the snow where it's catching the light. I'll want to wipe away the peaks on those distant mountains. And also describe the edge of the lake as well. For the snow over here, the top plane of the snow is actually darker and cooler than the tilted up snow. So when I get to that point, I'll just mix up a few very high value whites. Bluer toward the far distance, except the highway. I may put the line of the highway in there. That's I-90. That's where we're getting a little bit of road noise. You know, it looks like there's, I don't know if you can see it, but it looks like there's a little tiny shack or something buried in the snow way out there in the distance. You can just see the top of a little building almost completely buried in the snow. Don't know if I'll include that or not. I'll definitely include some of the stumps and rocks that I'm seeing covered in snow on the lake shore. But otherwise it's going to be pretty simple. I'll mix up a very grayed out greenish blue for the ice on the lake, a little deeper color on the edge here, and then again I'll mix up some grayed out very high value whites, a little more lavender, bluer toward the distance, warmer, a little more alizarin crimson, a little redder toward the middle, and then a little warmer yet, a little bit of burnt sienna maybe in the mix, or maybe a little bit of cad red to get some warmth as it comes closer, but all very close to white. And then where the snow is tipped up and catching the light, that's almost pure white with maybe just a touch of cad yellow. Got some colors mixed up here. I've got some blues for the sky, a little deeper, richer blue for the top of the sky, more reddish blue for the middle, and then this is the cloud color. Now I can also dip into these for the reflected light on the mountain and the reflected light on the snow, so I'll try to keep those as clean as I can. I've got a grayed out greeny blue for the trees on the background mountains, on the distant mountains, and it gets a little yellower as it comes closer to me, so I can use this, dip into the sky a little bit to really dull it down, and dip into this to warm it up and to bring it forward. And then the bank of pine trees closer to us, those colors are here. There are some deciduous trees with a pretty tan lavender color, and this is a lighter value with a little bit of green for the trunks of those trees. Got some color mixed up for the stumps that are on the lake shore covered in snow, and then I've got these colors mixed up for the ice on the lake. I really struggled to capture those colors. They're really subtle colors, and I think the problem is they kind of vibrate between green and a really paled reddish violet. So I just mixed up some approximations. I tried to minimize the number of colors I used to mix those. I used the Windsor lemon and cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and white, and to get those different shades, all pretty close to the same value, just one step lighter than the trees on the mountains and one step lighter than the snow colors and the sky colors. This is an accent color mixed up. It's almost pure white with just a touch of cad yellow. So this is just for the end to put some paint on the mountain and where the snow is tipped up and reflecting. And then I've got some lavender shades for the top of the snow, a little bluer, a little redder, a little darker. So I'll just use the biggest brush I can to paint the scene. As I paint the sky, I'm trying to create interesting, abstract, soft shapes and avoid any kind of repetition. I don't want any repeated shape or pattern. I'm also trying to keep the edges blended and soft without actually using a blending brush. I find a large flat synthetic like this evergreen brush works well. It's got a sharp enough edge that I can correct the drawing as I go, but it's soft enough that I can avoid streaks in the paint. Slightly over the edge of the top of the mountain with the sky color. I do that so I can paint back into the sky color with the mountain color and get a nice soft edge. I like to keep my edges as soft as possible while still maintaining the value pattern. I can always make an edge harder later. Now I'll take a smaller clean brush, also an evergreen synthetic flat, and paint the snow on the mountain. I want that one sharp, triangular middle peak to really jump out. I want it to be the brightest point in the scene. So the brush needs to be clean. I dip into the Gamsol and clean the brush on a paper towel or on a cotton cloth I bring. Then I dip into that almost white accent color and paint that peak and the light struck slopes around it. Let's see, when I'm painting the mountains, what I've been doing lately is trying to follow John Singer Sargent's approach, which is paint the middle value, then paint the light, then paint the dark, and then paint any accents. And I'll try to do that throughout the scene. I'll start at the sky and move forward. I'm using this evergreen synthetic. It covers a lot of ground. It's a nice synthetic with some spring. Holds its shape really well. I'm dipping into a little bit of Gamsol just to help the paint flow off the brush easily. Here I'm adding the middle values. I'm also dipping into the sky color to lighten that rock and shadow color a bit. I judge it by comparing it to the sky color that I already have down, and it seems a little dark. Dipping into the sky color I have left over lightens it and also helps me to maintain a nice color harmony. There's a lot of reflected skylight on those distant mountains. It's a partly cloudy day, so the light is constantly changing. I actually love partly cloudy days. I love getting an unexpected play of cloud shadow and light on the landscape. Cloud shadows on the foreground or middle ground can bring a lot of drama. It can also add a surprising depth to a deep scene like this. I've got a reference image on my phone from when I first started, if I need it, if the light changes too much. But I don't typically refer to that after I have the composition, the sketch down on the panel. So looking out at the scene, I keep part of my mind aware of the changing light and thinking about what would be the most beautiful interpretation of the scene in front of me. A mix of bright sunlight and shadow usually appeals to me. Those distant gray shapes I'm painting are actually trees climbing up to the snow line. Atmospheric perspective is turning the trees from green to a bluish gray the further away they get. I mix those colors for those trees and for the rocks on the mountains at the same time. There's very little difference between them from this distance. Very little difference in color or value. As the trees get closer to me, they become more green and darker. So the paint I mix should also be more green and darker. And also the highlights will get more green and lighter. At least on the trees. Nothing will be as bright as the snow on the mountain. If I can, I like to pre-mix the colors for the whole scene. Then I can just dip into them as I go and adjust them using those same colors. I find the pre-mixed piles of paint really help me to keep my colors clean and to keep my values grouped. I group the values into just a few value families and place those side by side on my little vertical palette. That way I can judge how the colors look together and how the values look. get out this mongoose hair brush. It's a Rosemary Masters long flat, and just suggest those leafless deciduous trees in front of the pines and keep it real loose. I can add more detail when I get back home. In the studio, I just want to capture the feeling and the color for now. This lighter, greener color for the branches and the trunks. That's not quite light enough, so I'll dip into a little bit of white. And this peachy lavender color for the tips of the branches. I'll shift it a little bit bluer, a little cooler as it goes away from me. That's a little too much. Try to decrease the scale as well as I go further away. They get smaller. And exaggerate it a little bit so that it reads. There's a couple of these in the snow, but I'll add those at the end after I paint the snow. I want to clean out my brush and paint the snow on the lake. You can see over here where I dulled this out, exaggerated that to push it back, made it bluer. Light on the scene is really changing now. My camera battery's about to die. I'm in the shade now. Wow, the light, it just gets more and more beautiful as the day progresses, as the sun sets. So pretty. My hands are getting cold now that I'm in the shade, so I'm going to try these USB gloves. They've got a battery pack that you can charge with a USB outlet. I'm going to put these on under my nitrile gloves. They say they're waterproof, but I don't really want to expose them to the solvent, so put them on under my nitrile gloves. Here you can see I'm just using the sky color straight in the shadows. It looks like it's about the same value and about the same color. Maybe a little warmer in real life here, but that's okay. I think it makes sense to use this color where I can. I'm going to use this cloud, more lavender, a little warmer, a little lighter shadow. When I was here earlier, these tree shadows weren't here, so I'm kind of taking a chance here by mixing scenes a bit. I'm not going to do it too much. I just really think it's really dramatic when there's shadows, a few shadows in the foreground. Well, so far these USB gloves are a lifesaver. They are really keeping my hands nice and toasty warm. They have 3 settings: cool, medium, and warm. I've got them on warm now because my hands were pretty chilled. Really nice. I can't quite recommend them yet because, well, I need to make sure that they last. I don't want to recommend anything that's going to break after a couple uses, but so far I really like them. Up. Yeah, had a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day, beautiful location. I'll definitely be coming back. I'd like to come back in the summer as well. I bet the lake is really pretty in the summer from this viewpoint. Tried to keep the edges really soft. Tried to knock down any ridges so that I could finish up in the studio. Really, on a day like this, where the light's changing so fast and fading so fast, all I really want to do is capture composition ideas and watch the light as it changes throughout the day, see when it's going to be the most pretty, take lots of video and photos while I'm here, and then take down color notes. Probably the most important thing is taking color notes. Photos, at least the photos I take, just don't quite capture the colors. And I also want to try to capture what's really drawing me to the scene, what's really exciting me, and maybe exaggerate it a little bit. Whoa. My easel is trying to slide down the hill. So I'll take it back to the studio and clean it up a bit. I think I want to add just a few more details to those distant mountains. I like the impact they have at this distance, but I think they need just a few more ridges and shadows. But otherwise, I like the lighting. I like the colors of the foreground snow. I think I need to model it just a little bit more so that it reads as a rounded, snowy landscape and not quite so flat. And I want to add some more snow, some more higher value to the lake to kind of bump up the interest in the green. Right now the green is covering too much of the lake. I want to kind of whittle that back and creep it just toward the shore of the lake. Got a bunch of colors mixed up here. I'll scrape those off onto my Prolific Painter glass palette and take those home and use them when I touch up the painting. I may even use them to create a bigger version of this scene. As always, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate you watching and supporting the channel. I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.